Hello, everyone. This is Demetrius Jelatis, and I'm joined again with Nate Tam. How are you?
Doing good. How you doing, buddy?
Never better. Excited to be reconnecting. Time flies. I've gotten some questions about how often we're going to do these and when the next one's coming out. I'm sorry, guys. The time flies by when life is busy, right? So, but I enjoyed our last conversation and looking forward to tonight. So, what do we got on the docket tonight? Let's see. I pushed you on the spot. Is that my job? I don't know.
No, I mean it's both of us right now. So I think you mentioned to me earlier about having a conversation about pool etiquette.
Yes, pool etiquette. So this is something that there's some interesting things. When we play, not everybody always conducts themselves professionally, and there are different types of distractions and confrontations and things that come up. And so it might be fun to kind of delve into what people are likely to face and maybe some different ways to either handle it or confront it if needed. And
Right.
Yeah, okay, and so we'll chat about that. Then we're going to talk a little bit about loss and playing pool, kind of in light of some of the things that we might have to go through in life. And
So you don't mean like loss like losing a game. You mean loss as in like personal loss, somewhere outside of pool world.
100%, yeah, because life, pool's a game, and sometimes life can insert itself in some pretty troublesome ways, and remind us that there's other things that are more important. And sometimes when life is crushing down on you, it could definitely make an impact. And so, just talking a little bit about that, because these are things that have come up. So these are just some little teasers as to what we're going to get into. And then, of course, we still you and I did our first podcast, and we never really got to delve too much into what it's like growing up and learning pool today versus kind of when I was learning pool, and some of the advantages that the new age players have, and maybe what that journey looks like. Because I just saw you play a Ghost video today, and obviously the learning curve. I mean, you really, of course, not everyone applies themselves like you do, but man, I'll tell you, you're on the fast track towards some great pool, and I'd love to hear you share your thoughts on what that fast track is. So
yeah, I appreciate that.
In the meantime, though, first, we've got a couple things to plug. So some people might be tuning in for the first time, and they might not know, they might have not heard of Nate Tam or Demetrius Jelatis. So we've got to clue everybody in. So I am a pool coach. You could check out my website at mnpoolbootcamp.com. MN stands for Minnesota, mnpoolbootcamp.com. And basically, I do 3-day pool training sessions for seriously passionate players. I work mostly with strong intermediates and advanced, but if somebody has passion and dedication, reach out to me, and maybe we can meet up and help take your pool game to the next level. Beyond that, I also want to mention I've been doing this mental game coaching, and it's been going really, really well. And so I want to thank all the people that have reached out to me. I'm in the middle of one right now, and it's just it's very meaningful to me.
Go ahead and explain like the format of that, because I did this mental coach, and I'm telling you, Demetrius, it really helped me sort of understand where I was at in my own head while in competition, not just overall training, but specifically at the table when I'm sitting down and the other guy is shooting. Like it was so helpful with that. So go ahead and what's the format of that look like?
So I've been, I feel very, very passionate about this because I played pool. Okay, here's what I would say is I would say that there are two different mindsets you can use to play pool, and two different ways you can enjoy the game. There's kind of a childlike way and a kind of a more mature, deeper way. And over the years, I've learned if you have the right attitudes and mindsets, you're not just going to play better, but you're also going to have a higher quality experience, less pressure, less negative emotion, things like this. And so over the years, I've kind of figured out what are the ways to construct a healthy outlook, number one, and number two, how to troubleshoot that machine, because invariably it's going to be tested. You're going to have times when you regress and start getting a little weak, whiny, frustrated, all the, fearful, things like this. And so being able to figure out where that machine is breaking down and then troubleshoot it. So first, building a good machine of outlooks and attitudes that preempt negative emotion, and then learning to, diagnose and troubleshoot in the heat of battle when that machine starts breaking down. And so how I do these classes, it's helped me, it's changed my life, not just my pool game. And so I feel like it's a mission of mine to help people get the most out of their pool game, both in terms of performance and enjoyment. So that being said, I've been doing groups of 3 people, and we have 3 2-hour Zoom calls where people can bring to me the challenges that they're facing on and off the table, whether it's goal setting or motivation, or whether it's like distractions or fear on the money ball, whatever it is. They bring certain things to me, and then I work that into whatever kind of curriculum I guess we go through. And so it really is a mental game system. It's not just conversation. It's kind of a system I use for myself that I've seen similarities with other champions and how they do things. So anyway, 3 2-hour sessions with a group of 3 people. And right now I'm in the middle of one. I've got another one queued up to go. And then I've got some people that have reached out. We're just trying to get together in the next group. So if you'd like more information, it's on my website, or you can reach out to me, and I'd love to get you in the next group. So,
And that website is what again?
mnpoolbootcamp.com. And I could do I'm probably going to kick one off in May. And then, that's so like I'd probably do like 4 to 5 of these a year. So there's limited availability, but there's not a ton of demand because it takes a special sort of person. A lot of people think, oh, that's a good idea, I should do something about it. But not many people actually pick up the phone. So know that if you do, you're going to be in the minority, and you're going to have an edge over your competition, because most people are just a basket of they're just head cases. So that's your competition. I realize
you say most people are head cases, but that's everybody.
You know what? I just realized that I basically just insulted the entire audience, except for like the 2 people that reached out to me last week.
So I'll tell you what though, it's so true. We're all head cases. I think what you bring to the table in terms of this mental training is you sort of get to pick apart what your head case really is, and then address those demons, while you're sitting in the chair. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And you know what? And I also just feel compelled to say thank you to the people like you and like everyone who's especially the people that have come out and boot camped with me. I just had the best boot camp session ever. And so I finally got to work. Vinay was from New York, and he reached out to me like a year and a half ago. And I'll tell you, it's a lot of pressure when somebody's been looking forward to working with you for a year and a half, and like they've messaged you and they've sent you like updated, they've sent you like videos or different like lists of what they're trying to work on, and you've got to talk to them on and off through email. And then, at a year and a half goes by, and then they come out, it's like, man, I don't want to dog it. Like, what if I let them down? It's such a lot of pressure. But then every time you get to the table, and we just had a really, really, really peak experience. I get to work with some amazing people, because people that come out for 3-day trainings are typically not average at what they do. They're pretty passionate and pretty interesting people, and pretty driven, and it's a treat. And I want to thank all the people that have come out and trained with me, because it's been the most exciting part of my life. So thank you guys. All right. So then talk to me about what's going on with Sensei Nate Teaches Pool.
Yeah, Sensei Nate plays pool. Honestly,
plays.
It doesn't matter. Sensei, you look up Sensei Nate, you'll find me probably. Not much is going on really. I've been trying to be more consistent with putting out content. It's just, life is crazy, man.
Yeah.
Life is nuts. And so I don't know if I spoke about this last time, but I have a really ridiculous life. I got a full-time job. I'm a husband. I'm a father of 4 very young children. My oldest kid is 6 years old. So it goes 6, 5, 3, and 1-year-old. So they're kind of young for me to be really chasing a YouTube career. So that's definitely off the table. And I have a day job, so that keeps me busy anyway. So this is all in my off time, but I just love pool so much. And it keeps me motivated to make stuff. And maybe we'll get into this a little bit later, but the main reason that I make videos is pretty selfish. I just like to learn, and I like putting the pressure on myself to learn deeper, quicker by either teaching it or sharing my experiences or some sort of insight that I may or may not have.
Well, it's definitely a May. It is an amazing. Again, very, very few people do YouTube for a living. But the fact that you're putting that much creative energy into it and the quality of the content is just outstanding. So thank you for what you do. And for anybody that's not subscribed, Sensei Nate Plays Pool is the channel. Well, thank you again for joining. So let's see. Let's talk about poor etiquette.
Let's do it. Let's talk.
All right. I was actually gonna wait for you to start talking. I was gonna interrupt you and try to start demonstrating poor etiquette, but I guess we could just. It was gonna be like some meta thing where anyway. Okay. So this comes up because actually in my current mental game class, one of the things that somebody brought to me was some situations where their opponents are conducting themselves kind of poorly. And I realized I'm a little spoiled because I guess the majority of what I play these days is in like open competitions or, professional level competitions to where I just don't really run into much poor etiquette anymore. It's kind of like bad equipment. I don't have to deal with equipment everywhere I go. I'm playing on new cloth diamond tables, So then I forget that there's like a whole world of people out there where their opponents are, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So
yeah, the barrier of entry for you is just so high that you're rarely going to run into that etiquette problem.
I miss it, man. I miss that.
You missed it.
Yeah, it's like a fun. I don't know, man. It's just kind of like I don't know. It's just another challenge to overcome. So what? Okay, so let's just say that his question was, I want to hear your thoughts about it, which is, he finds himself getting distracted and frustrated. So if his opponents are doing things like, maybe they're talking or moving around or standing up while he's shooting, maybe they're making snide comments about, like scoffing or, whatever he gets, like eye rolling or sarcastic, nice shots, or it's just like whatever, like fill in the blank, miscellaneous kind of nickel dime, anti petty, sharking behavior.
Right. He really feels like he's being sharked with every move the other guy's making.
And sometimes it's not even deliberate. Maybe it's just somebody that's just doesn't really know, and they're talking to their friends really loudly or whatever, So what are your thoughts on how should you handle that? Or what are your thoughts on that?
I wouldn't say it's singular, but I do have a very, very simple thought when it comes to etiquette. And that's if your opponent is not showing good etiquette and they are somewhat misbehaving around the table, it only benefits you if you're in the right mindset for it.
Explain.
Okay, so
it's you if you're in the right mindset for it. Okay.
Yeah, I think the only beneficiary of that kind of behavior is the person in the chair. Generally speaking, these people are very reactive to what's happening either on the table or off the table. That means that they're not highly focused, right? And in my experience, anytime I've played anyone that sort of has that bombastic nature about them, it's almost like I get more methodical and I get more silent and I get more still and I just let them do what they do. And every once in a while I catch that glimpse of, he thinks that he's affecting me in some way. And the more I let it not affect me, the more it affects him. And that only benefits me, right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it's almost like pool is a contest to see who can stay focused on the task at hand the best. And
exactly, yeah.
And they're employing, intentionally or unintentionally, they're employing a very risky strategy, which is they are going to distract themselves from the task at hand in a hope that they then distract you even more. So like, in other words, if they start chatting with their buddies or whatever, they are automatically losing the effectiveness as far as they're taking themselves out of focus. But then if you allow that to derail you and you become out of focus even more than they are, then they gain an edge. So, but basically, if you could keep your focus and not let that bother you, then you're playing optimally. They're just hurting them.
Exactly. Yeah. Whether or not it's intentional sabotage, it doesn't really matter if you're doing your job.
Okay. So I think a lot of it is unintentional. I think the majority is unintentional. But what would you say if somebody said, well, easy to say, but I mean, it's so frustrating. They shouldn't be doing that. I just find myself I don't talk when they're shooting and I don't wave my hands around. And you know what I mean? Like, what would you say if somebody just felt that way about it? Like they were having a hard time applying your just stay focused method.
Yeah. It's almost like when you have a really hard day and you will yourself to get to the gym and you freaking sweat everything out. It's that sort of mindset. Now that not everyone is going to respond that way, but I think it's easier to respond in that sort of guttural instinct way where you use this negative mood that you're now feeling because of XYZ the other guy's doing at the table. And then you use that to either enhance your focus or almost like attack the table. I've seen some players do that where I think it was, I don't know if it was a match on Sharks where I was watching Niels Fine. He's in the Philippines. He's playing this big match, and over and over and over, whoever this guy that he's playing, I forgot who he was playing, keeps leaving his chalk on the table or talking or something. He's very clearly sharking Niels, and Niels straight up just ignores it and starts freaking punching the table. Not literally, but he attacks the table in the rack, and you can tell he's starting to play a little bit more aggressive. Niels ends up winning, and then after he makes the last ball, he takes the chalk that was left on the table and he throws it at the other guy.
That's awesome. I mean, short of flipping the pool table over with one hand, that's pretty awesome. So, okay.
Yeah, but just that idea, the mentality of okay, so you're frustrated. Use that energy and turn it into something productive.
Yeah, I can piggyback on that a little bit because I definitely agree. I do sometimes turn that like irritation into like, okay, and like I'm gonna make you suffer for this a little bit. And so one of the things I think about is that a lot of times, okay, it depends on if it's intentional or unintentional, but in some ways it doesn't matter but I do think that even if we think it's unintentional, I think people like, okay, say somebody's just chatting with their neighbor and acting kind of nonchalant and lackadaisical. Like, I think when people act that way, they may not be intentionally trying to shark you, but maybe somehow, some way they've learned that when their opponent's playing well and they're kind of struggling, that if they just kind of like act like they don't care and act like they're not,
they laugh it off.
It's almost like if they play and I've had people that do what I call like playing possum, where like, okay, say I'm playing a race to 7 and I win like the first 3 or 4 games and I'm running out, I'm trying really hard and they're struggling. I've had people just kind of act like the set's over, and then they get up at 1-stroke balls, and who cares, and you're going to win, and you're playing, I guess you got to be. And then they just start like whacking balls around and acting defeated, acting like they're not even trying. And then as soon as you like, if you ever let off, all of a sudden they jump up and they start, try, oh, okay, I got you to lose focus, and now I'm going to try to win. And it's almost like they realize they can't outplay you, but their only chance is if you like stop playing so good. And so they're going to just try everything they can to get you to not keep trying as hard. And so anyway, when people do stuff like that, I just feel like whether it's intentional or unintentional, I look at it as if they're saying to me this. I look at it like they're saying, I can't beat you. You're too good for me. The only way I can beat you is to try to like throw you off your game. So here's my attempt to do that. And so I just look at it as a sign of weakness that, okay, you can't outplay me. So you're going to try to talk what I'm shooting. That's your best strategy. And then it does. It kind of irritates me, so that I just do exactly what you're saying, which is I kind of use that as a fuel to like, maybe this makes me a bad person, but I just want them to suffer. And I feel like this. I almost feel like
that doesn't make you a bad person. That makes you a good competitor.
When they start acting that way, I feel like it's because they're kind of like it's this weak little whippery like distraction attempt. And I'm like, no, I feel like they're kind of weak and whiny, and they deserve to be punished for that. That's it.
Yeah. I think, for the most part, that's intentional, right? It's all about the intentional bad etiquette from other players. Now, there are those moments where it's very clearly unintentional, and it's just like pet peeves, like guys who slap their chalk on the table upside down, right? Because they think it's cool for some reason, or
the stuff, the super slow concessions where people miss and then they like pose by the table for 10 seconds and in disbelief that they missed the ball, and then like drag their cue away and slowly walk back to their chair. Yeah.
And even if it's from the heart and it's honest and it's not intentionally, they're trying to sabotage you. Just guys who respond vocally. Any player who responds to your success with their disgust, I think, like what you're saying, just add the fuel to your fire and just drill it in them. I don't care if that makes you seem like an a-hole. That makes you a good competitor to sort of, use that as your advantage.
Yeah, I agree. And then the other thing is that there's this idea that this thought. So one thing to avoid losing focus or whatever on your own is this idea. I want to talk about this idea of like, I shouldn't have to be dealing. Like, they shouldn't be doing that. I shouldn't have to be dealing with this. They should be quiet. They shouldn't be moving. They shouldn't say anything when I'm at the table, whatever. It's like the thing I like to think about is that as a competitor, anything between you and the finish line is part of the game. It doesn't matter if there's a dead rail. You can't sit there and be like, well, the rail shouldn't be dead, and then shoot a bank shot and watch it not work and be like, well, how was I supposed to do it? It's like, no. You're a competitor, right? Well, then understand that rail is dead. And if you didn't know and it got you the first time, fair enough. But once you know that rail's dead, well, now you have to overcome that. And so just know that. So either work around that rail or understand how it's going to play differently or whatever. But like, you don't get to sit, like, if you want to win, you got to overcome that, right? And I think to be a champion, if you want to win, anything between you and the finish line is part of the game. So you don't get to sit there and be like, the guy was talking, therefore I got frustrated and distracted and played poorly. He shouldn't have done that. He should have been quiet. I should have played better and I should have won. It's like, well, we can't really play the should have game. It's like, that's not true. He shouldn't have been quiet. Like, when you signed up for the competition, like, who told you? Did God come down from the sky and promise you that nobody was going to speak? And that, like, somehow you had a contract where everybody signed a contract that said if they spoke that they were going to, like, forfeit out of the tournament? Like, no, this is all your contract that you made in your head. And that's not how, like, the universe doesn't work the way you wish it worked. So either you could try to get everybody in the world to start behaving the way you think they ought to behave, or you have to adapt and overcome. And it's like, so I just think this idea of people should do this or shouldn't do that, or I shouldn't be dealing with this, I think that's just a really, really, really ineffective mindset. And that the better mindset is people are going to do exactly what they're going to do. And it's my job to adapt and change to be effective, not theirs to change the way I want them.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. The only thing I might differ on is it really kind of does depend on who you're playing. Look, when I started playing, I used to get dirty looks all the time for like backing up into other players. I'm a pretty, like, I might be good with like body mechanics and like kinesthetic awareness, but I am a clumsy dude, man. So when I first started playing, it was just all the time that I would either talk over someone or run into someone, or like I just didn't know, right? And then as your play gets better, as you get more developed and as you gain more experience and you sort of soak up the environment more, I think that the etiquette sort of comes to you. And then and only then can you really judge someone for, intentionally misbehaving.
Yeah, so this brings up, so the first point that we made was kind of like, it was a two-parter. It was like, A, accept it as part of the game, embrace it as part of the game, and B, if you do feel any residual irritation, turn that into a fuel to perform stronger. And realize that it's on you because it's part of the game. Okay. So then the other thing has to do with, though, it's almost like you could divide etiquette or poor etiquette into two types. Some etiquette that you have to tune out and overcome, but there might be some poor etiquette that you have to address and confront. The way this ties in with what you're saying is it's not fixed. It's not fixed universally. It's fixed based on the environment you're in. So, for example, if I'm playing at the Derby and we're round 7 and some guy starts acting, talking to his friends and moving around while I'm playing, like, that might be like confrontable level type distractions. But if I go to some, if I'm just at some bar APA league where everybody's drinking and talking, for me to go in there and like try to confront everybody in the league one by one throughout the course of the night to try to get them to behave like Neil's fan,
wow.
That would be pretty foolish. So that's
not gonna look good on you either.
Yeah. So I know people that have done that stuff. So basically, what you have to do is you have to have a sliding scale of what it's an adaptable levels of etiquette depending on the environment, and so you have to understand that different levels of serious play, different levels of how serious people are bring different levels of etiquette. And that when you sign up to play in a certain environment, you are basically signing a waiver stating that you agree to comply with the level of etiquette. So if you go to play some rural town bar tournament and everybody's like playing loud music and drinking beers and just kind of getting a little unruly, like if you go compete in that tournament, you sign a waiver saying, I'm good with that level of conduct. And if you're not good with that level of conduct, you can't. So like, just to be very specific now, the guy that I was talking to on my mental game training, he's playing in a league with a bunch of recreational players, and he's upset that they're not acting like, serious competitors. And I'm just kind of like, either you have to embrace that, or if you really feel that that's so unacceptable that you just don't want to be around it, then you don't get to play.
You got to take yourself out. You got to take yourself out at that point. I was in a very similar situation.
Sorry.
Yeah, I know. I know that feeling from experience, right? I did exactly one season of APA and was like, well, if this is what it's like, and I mean that's a whole another story. We could talk about league another time, because that was a little nuts. But essentially, I didn't really get to play because I went from a hired gun to suddenly I'm a 7 and they're unwilling to play me. And now I'm just sitting around doing nothing. Well, I'm like, what am I using my time for? I'm spending my time where I could be either at a tournament or training or doing something else productive in my game. But I'm here, complaining that these guys aren't taking it seriously. Of course they're not taking it seriously. So I took myself out.
That's right. Okay, so then let's talk about, so the first thing was, in that sense, is understand that there's a sliding scale of etiquette. However, sometimes people do stuff where it's even in the environment you're in, it's unacceptable or uncalled for. And there's times when you might need to confront somebody. So what are some situations, Nate? Can you think of any situations that have come up recently for you or ever where you've actually had to confront somebody?
Jeff DeLuna.
Wow.
Jeff DeLuna. Sorry, Jeff.
Did you actually have an issue? I played him. I never had a problem, but of course.
No. I've never had an issue. I've never played Jeff, but I've just heard the horror stories and I've seen some things on camera. You can go look some up, but essentially it's sad because the guy's known for two things. He's known for breaking big and, kind of acting a little strange at the table sometimes.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of a time I've had to confront somebody. Again, it doesn't come up very often. I like the passive, the passive resistance when possible, kind of like we've already described. So, for example, I played a guy one time that did a few things that were a little distracting. And the way I handle it, I never talked to him about it or addressed it directly with him. But what I would do is whenever I was playing, if I was at the table and he started doing this stuff that was a little distracting, I would just go back to my chair, sit down, grab my beverage, have a sip, wipe down my cue, and just wait. And then when he would stop doing it, I'd go back to the table. And I would just take a deep breath, walk around the table, extra lap.
That's it. Yes.
And it was just like, I mean, hey, man, I got time. Like, you do you. I'll play my cards. And then, I'm not. But it wasn't just to teach him a lesson and change his behavior. It was also, I wasn't going to allow myself to, be distracted. And so I wanted to make sure, and I wanted to just make sure I wasn't going to shoot the shot until I was ready to shoot the shot. So if he wants to contribute to me taking it, okay, so let's do something easy. Suppose you're playing, and the guy you're playing starts making some snide comments about like, oh, a nice shot or this and that. Like, if he says something once, I'm probably not going to say anything. But if I'm playing, or what? Okay, but what if you're playing? I'm trying to go back in my memory base. What if the guy starts saying stuff like, "Oh, that's a pretty tough cut. Easy to go, easy to overcut that." Like, what if he's just like way out of line and start? Actually, yeah.
Let me tell you, I played a set. I played a couple sets, cheap sets, against a fairly well-known player. I'm not going to say his name. He's not like pro level, but he's a strong amateur, and the guy I'd never heard someone talk so much at that level while I was down playing. And they're not big sets. It's not for a lot of money, but it threw me because I was so surprised at like just how much this guy was talking. Kind of like what I was saying before. It just gave me motivation to get down and shut him up a little bit. But then of course, the next comments out of his mouth are about how I'm playing well and I shouldn't be a 6 whatever and all that stuff. So it's a little annoying, but then try to fuel your fire.
Yeah, I think that if I was to draw a pie chart of like how I handle distractions, it's like 80% managing where I play so where I don't have to face stuff I can't handle. Probably like 18%, channeling it into, focus and drive and making it part of the game, and like 2% confrontation. Like it's a very, very small.
Right. It's tiny. Yes.
But if I have to confront something, here's what I would say is you do it at levels. So the first thing you do is you're very you can't be emotional. You can't be challenging. Like the wrong way to handle it would be like, hey man, shut your mouth when I'm at the table. Like that's not going to do anybody any. But if what you said is, hey, would you mind when I'm at the table? I try not to talk when you're at the table. Could you do that for me? Like just if you could say it kind of like casually, then that would probably be the first shell that you'd fire. What are some examples?
Coughing on your backswing.
Oh yeah, if somebody starts like deliberately making noises on my backswing, I'd probably have to say, listen, I get it, but when I'm shooting, would you mind not doing that, please? Thanks. That's
yeah. And then if it keeps happening, at what point does it become either notify the tournament director in your kind of setting, right? Or does it become, escalate the confrontation slightly?
That's right. So those are kind of your tools. Is like the first tool is to, is this something you can handle and just make part of the game and deal with it? If not, you try that first little polite volley, like I said. If that's not going to happen, maybe there's a spot where you say, you know what, this is that's not really something I'm good with. I'm going to ask you again not to do it. If I need to, we could get the tournament director. And then if he's still not compliant, that's when you kind of go to the tournament director and say, listen, I'm not trying to be a baby. I'm not looking for a babysitter here, but I've asked this guy. He keeps right when I'm shooting, he's doing everything he can to distract me. Would you mind coming over and either talking to him or just witnessing a rack or two? So basically, first you bring it up politely, then you bring it up insistently, and then you get the tournament director. And actually, I should say, first you handle it on your own. Then you bring it up politely, then you bring it up sternly, and then you get the tournament director. And I'm telling you, in my life, it's really, really vast majority I just handle. And then only a few times do I even bring something up. And when I do, it's very, very polite and relaxed. And that handles. So it's like 99% of it is I handle stuff. And then out of the other 1%, like 99% of that is usually good with one polite ask. Now, the reason I handle it so 99% is because most of the time, if it's a tournament match, like the tournament match is going to be over in a minute. Just play the tournament match. And then like, I just don't play guys like that. And so if I have to deal with the guy once, then I'll just deal with him and then I don't have to play him again. And what helps me too, by the way, there's something I like to think to myself. I'll think to myself, I have to put up with this guy for like 5-10 minutes. He has to live the rest of his life like that. And it usually makes me feel a little compassion for him. So,
well, you're a better man than probably most players then.
Yeah. So anyway, so I think that's a good, basically to recap, you have to be aware of what's appropriate etiquette for your environment that you're in, because it scales and it's not the same everywhere you go. So you have to learn the etiquette in your room that you're playing in, and you can't change it. You got to adapt to it, and you sign a waiver that you're good with it when you sign up to play in that environment. Vast majority should be stuff you handle on your own. And very, very rarely should you confront anybody. And if you do it without emotion. Just do it politely and casually. And I'm sure once or twice in your life, you'll have to get a tournament director, but it's such an exceptional situation. It really shouldn't affect your career. There.
Yeah. Yeah. Unless you're playing Jeff DeLuna. Oh, sorry. I had to.
You know, you're a little out of the kitchen there, Nate. You're a little out of the kitchen. Well, let's go to, let's change it. Let's cheer it up a little bit. And let's talk about dealing with tragic loss.
Real cheery.
I've got a...
Damn it, dude.
So a student of mine that I got to work with last summer had, I don't want to say his name or what he's going through, but let's just leave it up to your imagination and just say there's some things in life that can happen that are so horrible that you kind of wish that it would never happen to anybody. And so when somebody, he called me and we had a good conversation because some of the stuff he was dealing with was like it could make it hard to play pool. It can make it hard to play pool in two ways. One, when you're dealing with loss and grief, it can be it could be distracting. It could take the wind out of your sails to where playing pool is a ton of adversity, and you could just be like, not really have a lot of fight in you some days. And some days it kind of makes you question, like, why am I fighting this fight? What's the point of all this in the light of how daunting life could be, So I don't know. What would you say to somebody that's struggling after a horrible loss with, trying to kind of spend time? And basically, it's like the pool is supposed to be their outlet. It's supposed to be their place to escape their grief and pain and just have a little escape. And now it's bursting the doors down and taking that away too. Like, what are your thoughts?
Well, here's what I would say. If the loss has something to do with pool, if it has to do with the game, if it has to do with you in the game, then maybe you just need that break, But if we're talking about something more personal outside of pool world, I'll address it by saying this. Here's a little anecdote for you. When I started getting like pretty serious about improving in pool, I think I've told you before, it was pretty much the pandemic, right? Right when COVID lockdowns hit, I started doing everything I could to learn about the game. And we can get more into this when we start talking about learning in this day and age. But it was a really, really rough time for my wife and I. So at the time, my wife and I both have full-time jobs. She's a teacher. She's a public school teacher. So doing that online. And then I was working remotely as a video editor for the same company I work for now. And then we had 3 kids, 2 toddlers and an infant. And then COVID lockdown hits, and within 9 months, I'd say within a year, but within the first 9 months, we got pregnant again. We lost a baby, so we miscarried, and then 9 months later, we miscarried again, and then a couple months later, my wife's best friend, good friend of mine, passed away from a stroke. All of this happening at once. Meanwhile, my wife is also getting her doctorate at USC. All of this at the same time. It was freaking like stupid hard. And so in that time, if I didn't have pool as an outlet, I have no idea how sane I would be. Right. Mm-hmm. So I channeled my kind of like the etiquette conversation. You funnel that grief and you funnel those emotions into developing in some way. And maybe that's just sort of a strength of mine that I have, that I've always had, is when I'm learning, I channel everything that I have into the learning, and it helps me like deal with shit. So that's my guttural instinct when I hear about, dealing with pain and loss and grief while playing pool, is you can either step away if you need to step away, deal with yourself. Because look, pool is not life. Life is life. If you need to handle personal issues, do that, right? And if that means being away from a pool table or being away from that environment, then cool. But if you can, I think pool can help you develop a sense of overcoming that grief by using those emotions and diving into game as a way to either be an outlet or an escape. Not that escapism is always healthy, but
yeah, it's balance, right? You don't want to always escape and never process anything, but sometimes you need a break, and sometimes you need anything you can do to cope. Yeah.
So that's my experience. Is pool wasn't necessarily my escape, but it sure was an outlet. It was a way for me to channel my grief and the crazy that was life at the time into something that was productive and that I was passionate about and that I could benefit from. And I think it was the right call, and I'm happy I did it. And maybe that's different for your friend, but that's at least my experience.
Yeah, I'll share a few thoughts. What you're saying makes a lot of sense. And what I went through, so I'll talk about something I went through in January. I appreciate you sharing. There's some things it's not about me not being willing to share, but it involves other people. It's not my right to share on their behalf. So I will just say that I was dealing with a family crisis, and there was like a week where it was tense. Things were tense. There was a lot going on. And I realized that when I'm in a time of crisis, I didn't realize that, like, I kind of got really, really zoned. where I was in shock. Like I didn't really process. I wasn't scared or sad. I was just super focused and calm and just focused on what needed to be done in that situation. Okay. And I was like that for better part of a week where I felt solid and strong. And of course I was concerned, but I was just focused. So then I go out and I had a choice because the Turning Stone tournament was like January 5th, 6th, whatever it was. And I was like, okay, I'm like, do I still go to Turning Stone or do I not go? And I was like, well, I think things are going to be okay. I think the crisis has been averted. I think that I think that I'm good. I think that I have a roommate out there. I've paid my tournament entry fee. And plus it's a pool tournament. It's probably good for me to have a break. And, I might as well go play the tournament. So I decided not to just forfeit out of the tournament. I'm like, no, that doesn't seem like the right thing. So I go out to Turning Stone, and on the drive out there, it was almost like this week of being like incredibly stoic and solid left me completely empty. And as soon as the crisis was over, Nate, like I kind of went to pieces, man. Like I drove out to this tournament. I got into the hotel, and then I just sat there, and it's almost like I just broke. And I went. And I was empty. I was like spiritually empty. And then I went to my first tournament match, and it's like the guy's just trying to kill me because it's like everybody, you play good tournaments, you good players, and it's like they're hungry and bright-eyed and coming at you and just trying to destroy you. And I felt like I just didn't have any fight in me, and they took me apart. And I went back to the hotel room, and I just felt like I wasn't even a pool player. I'm like, I didn't have any fight. I didn't have any spirit. I didn't have and what I realized was that I was weak and whiny and negative, and like I just like, why this isn't fun. This isn't what I want to do. Why am I doing this? And it was super tough. And so I got beat out of the tournament. I actually went 2-0. My second match, I didn't miss a ball until I was up 8-5, and then the guy came back and beat me 9-8, and he played good. It was my first round of the loser side was some 700 plus Bargo from Canada, where I'm like, it was a pretty tough draw. Like everything was hard, just like everything. And so so here's.
I take that as a sign, Demetrius.
Yeah, here are some takeaways that I had from just dealing with that. Is that first thing is, I remember it was a good reminder because I don't compete often. I don't get to compete monthly or weekly, and so I only get to compete a handful of times a year. And so it was a good reminder that when you sign up for a pool tournament, you are signing up for an ocean of adversity. You are signing up for having your opponent miss and leave you frozen on top of balls where, you're signing up for hard shots, and you're signing up for tremendous pressure, and you're signing up for big score deficits, and you're signing up for opponents that are playing outstanding pool and getting lucky on top of it. You're signing up for like the hardest thing you could ever do. It's like, that's what you're signing up. And so you have to be ready and excited. So you better feel prepared and excited to face that. You can't stagger into it feeling empty and like hoping it's easy. That doesn't really work too well. And so that's the first thing. Is like, and the second thing, then I started asking myself, like, why am I doing this? Like, why is this important to face this adversity? Why do I want to keep doing this? Like, I'm signing up for these tournaments where everybody plays so good and everybody just beats me and runs out on me and all these, I feel old and tired, and everybody else is young and hungry and never missing a ball. And I'm like, why am I doing this? And of course, we all have our own purpose. And when it comes into like, what role does pool have in our life? That's for each individual to answer. But for me, it was like, well, what's the alternative? And the alternative is to not play and to say it's too hard and to quit playing and just tease or just hit balls around my home table and not test myself anymore. And for me personally, I'm like, no, that doesn't sound like. So sometimes when you can't see the purpose as to why you're doing something, it helps to kind of think about like what the alternative is. And so even if it's like, I'm not playing pool because I'm going to accomplish something or prove something or beat somebody or do, it's like, I'm not testing myself for any other reason than I don't like the person I would be if I quit testing myself. And so I have to keep going. And that's for me. So first of all, I'll take a breath. Does that kind of make any sense?
Absolutely. I think my guttural response to that is that it reminds me of a lot of the reasons why I also practice karate. So that's where the Sensei nickname comes from. It's a reference to my karate background. Here's a very quick story. So I am a spiritual person, and I went to a karate seminar, and towards the end of the seminar, we were all practicing our katas, our forms, where we sort of do these rehearsed set of moves over and over. And it comes to like the last round of doing these kata, and the instructor said something where he was like, don't worry about the movement. Don't worry about, the people watching. Don't worry about, whatever it is in your head. I want you to focus only on one thing. Dedicate this next set of moves to something. I don't care what the something is. Dedicate that to that thing. And so for me, that's obvious for me. Oh, okay. I can sort of perform this kata as a form of worship instead of performing the movement as a means of doing the movement to practice the perfection of the movement itself, or to beat the other guy if I'm in a competition, right? Instead, use that as an opportunity to channel whatever you're going through as a dedication to something else. And suddenly, it's not your weight anymore.
It's interesting because I was thinking a lot of the same thing. So this guy had lost somebody very important. And I was thinking about like what we talked about, and then I'll share with you what he said helped him. Because we had a conversation and he said it helped him. Like, well, what was it that I said? Or what was it that you thought about after we talked that helped you? Like anything that I could share, And so for me though, I think about like a couple things. One is you have to give yourself permission to be human. So for example, if somebody came up and broke your arm, and then you try to play pool and you were in pain and it was affecting your play, like you'd have to be a little tolerant and understanding of yourself to like, I can't expect myself to play as well when somebody just broke my stroke arm. Like, of course that's going to affect me. And I think that to a point, if you're dealing with massive loss and grief, you have to understand that you're human, and that to sit there and say, it shouldn't bother me. I should be able to tune that out, and this should be this deep, and I shouldn't be able affected by this. There's that word should again, by the way, in case you guys don't see a pattern. It's like, no, you can't. It would be like me going outside in Minnesota in 20 degree below weather and be like, I decided in my head I should not get. It's like, no, I'm human. It's going to affect me. And so to some extent, you have to be a little patient. And when you're grieving and when you're wounded, you have to be a little patient with yourself. Now, there's a balance, of course, because how do you know if we're being impatient with ourselves, or how do we know when we're being too patient for too long and it's time to kind of pull ourselves together and muscle down and get it done?
Right. Well, right. Kick yourself in the butt a little bit.
Yeah, I've typically found that it's, for anybody that's asking that question, is usually being a little too hard on themselves versus being a little too patient with themselves. But anyway, that being said, I also like to think about, like, when you were talking about dedication, it's like, we have a life we can live. And so how do we want to live it? What is the point of doing this? It's like, well, if we're going to do it, let's do it our best, because in the end, we all live and we all have burdens. And sometimes those burdens are really heavy, but if we do our best to live in a way that we feel is honorable or virtuous in some ways, sometimes we can help each other with our burdens a little bit. That's why, like, the mental game training is so important to me, or even this podcast. It's like, if we can help each other with our burdens just a little bit. And so I thought about this person he lost, and it's like, it would be a little cheesy to be like, well, that person would want you to be a winner and they'd want you to play it. But like, really, like, it's like, of course you're human. You're going to grieve. You're going to suffer. It's going to affect you. And that's fine. And you can be patient with yourself as that happens. But at the same time, it's like, you've got this gift of life and you express your appreciation for that gift by living it to your best. And so what helped him is it's almost like he wanted to live his life in a way. Sorry, man. He wanted to live his life in a way that would have inspired the other person, even if they weren't around.
I hear you, man. That's kind of what I mean by dedication. I don't mean dedication to the game, or dedication to your effort, or dedication to, being focused in the moment while you're in that situation, while you're grieving in a tournament or something. Like, I mean dedication to something else, for someone else, or even for some abstract idea of time, using your life while you have it, that kind of thing, right? It doesn't have to be worship in some way. It doesn't have to be anything other than something outside of yourself, I think. Because as soon as you focus your energy on something internal in those moments, I think it's really easy to spiral down into something that's hard to escape. And maybe I'm not describing that clearly, but my advice, not that I think this is great advice for everything, but find something to dedicate to, not just be dedicated. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's what he said helped him too, is kind of feeling like he was still on a team with this person, and that's it. Is that just because they're not here doesn't mean that they're not always part of the team he's on, and that yeah, it goes
right.
That's it, man.
Honor if you're losing a person, and they would want you playing pool, honor that, right?
And that doesn't mean that if you hear a song on the radio that brings back emotions and disrupts your focus or wakes up wounds that affect your play, be patient with it. So just,
that's right.
I like to say this. I like to say, do your best. And even if you don't feel like you're doing your best, if you're doing your best to do your best, then you are doing your best. So be good to yourself. And so I just moment of compassion. I know that there's a lot of people listening, and like everybody has a burden, and some people are carrying a lot right now. And so I just want you to know that we're all pool players. We're all on the same team. We're all human. We're all pool players. And so I wish all you guys some relief from the burdens you're carrying. And I hope that you have a great next session and play with purpose, because how we act, it all matters. And yeah, I that's it.
What Demi said.
Well then, jeepers.
Nice light podcast so far.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to. Yeah, like I'm gonna need to go see my therapist tomorrow. I'm gonna get something stronger. I get a good thing those gummies are legal where I live now. I can. I just think of like the stupidest jokes. I'll tell you something to lift the mood. So this my last student. I like to shark my students when they're shooting moneyball. It's kind of a tradition in the Jelatis dojo. So
that's fun. No, I love that. That's funny. I've heard of like horror stories of guys on teams where like everyone takes a turn while the other players on the team just yell insults and try to shark them like for a whole few games just to see how they handle it.
Yeah, exactly. And so I usually reserve it for money balls, and I will say though that I'm pretty good at it. Not because I don't say just like random like, oh, don't miss. Like I'm very good at knowing like what are the wrong thoughts to be thinking at this moment, and then saying them out loud. And so just like, because I know the types of things you don't want to be thinking, you know what I mean? So anyway, it's like if I have a superpower, it's like so anyway, this guy, we're playing at the end, we're playing Scotch doubles, and we're playing a set. We actually won the 8-ball set we played. We were down, and then we came back and won 7-5. And he made a hero shot too at 6-5. He made a hero shot to get me on the last ball. And anyway, it was awesome to see him come with that. But then we were playing some 9-ball racks, and finally it got down to the last game, but we got down to the 9-ball, and he had a little bit of a tester, but like it wasn't bad, but it was under pressure. And so as he's getting down, I said to him, as he's down shooting the shot, I'm like, just so you know, I do have a log of all my students and which ones make them, hill and which ones dog, or something like that. I'm like, just so you know, I do keep track of that.
Damn it, Demi.
It was rough.
That's rough.
Yeah. And so he ended up missing the ball, but we were just laughing so hard. And to be fair to him, though, he made every other money ball that I tried sharking him. He made, so that was the only one he dogged it. I got it. And it was
good on him, man.
Yeah, and it was 100 shots, bro. It was sometimes one of my other go-tos I like is man, it's a long flight home thinking about this one if it don't go.
That's funny. I wonder if sharking like completely outside of pool world would be just as funny. Like just start playing like sound effects in the background, something ridiculous, maybe a catchphrase from something. Just to see what happens.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to experiment. But it's actually, I'll tell you what, I was teaching a junior player one time, and so I worked with Hank the Tank, Harry Lennon, was awesome. But anyway, I worked with Harry. Then I worked with another junior player. And this player was the first time I'd worked with them, and they were shooting the 8-ball. And I said something to Sharkum, and they ended up shooting the 8-ball, and they stood up and they said, Harry told me you would do that. So they were prepared for my ad.
Wow, it happened so much that you even have a reputation for it.
I'm telling you, it made me proud. Proud coaching moment. So this is what you can expect. Okay. How you doing, Nate? You okay?
Doing good, yeah.
Cool. All right. So Nate, what's it like growing up in playing pool, starting to get into pool bug in 2020? What? Tell me about it, man.
In 2020.
Well, I don't know. Isn't that? I thought you said that's what.
Yeah. You just what I said. I got the. Yeah. I know what you mean. I started getting more serious about pool in 2020, but I started playing 2018 probably. Yeah.
Okay.
2018 or so. So about 5 years, coming up on 6. Yeah. But then only a few years of taking it serious.
Yeah. So I'll share something so my dad was a rock climber. And he told me, they have different grades of like rock climbing. So like 5-6 is like warm up recreation. 5-7 is pretty lightweight. And back when he was climbing in the 60s and 70s, 5-7 was like beginner stuff. 5-8 was like intermediate. And 5-9 was like pretty serious. Like people that have been, it was pretty advanced. And then like 5-10, right. I mean, the rating system was supposed to go. The reason it was 5.9 is because that was supposed to be like the limit. Well, 5-10 was real heavy. They started coming up with new ratings, and 5-10 was real heavy. So then fast forward like 20 years, and people were starting at 5-9. That was like a beginner climb. And wow. technique just changed and evolved so much that the type of stuff that he graduated to at the end of his climbing career was the stuff that like people that have been out a couple times had got it done. And so it's just funny how standards change. And I think I've seen the same thing with pool, because I have a skewed view for sure of the pool world. So that's one of the reasons I think this will be interesting. The reason my view is really filtered is most of who I see are students that come train with me or people I play in tournaments that are serious tournaments. So I don't see the thousands and thousands of recreational players, that are training hard and learning stuff. But what I will say is there are people today that call me to do a boot camp. They're like, yeah, I've been playing for 2 years. So when I hear that, I'm like, oh, you've only been playing for 2 years. Like, I don't know if you're going to be at the level where I can work with you for 3 days. And then I see them play or we talk and I'm like, oh my God, they got in 2 years. It took me like 5 or 6 years to get that good. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So like, and everyone's showing up at everybody's technique and stroking and striking and people's knowledge. Like, it just seems like the road to pool, good pool, it's gone from like a jungle, hack your way through the jungle from a gravel road. And now it's like a paved highway, man, towards good pool, where it's not easy, but for the right motivated people, there's a lot of resources and direction out there, and people can get very good very quickly. And it's just been very surprising to me how that's changed and how quickly people get excellent. And watching your goal set was definitely an example. I mean, great shooting, Nate. So
no, thank you, man. Yeah.
But so that's kind of what was on my mind, and I just wanted to hear your perspective as to like, but that all being said, that paved road only does you any good if you go down it, and there's probably still a lot of people wandering around in the jungle. What do you think?
Oof, so many things come to my mind. Most of it, I think, has to do with it being the 21st century. I learned to deep dive into pool by watching videos during COVID. Right.
What were some of the things that kind of like, so tell me about like, what were some of the things that you found were the most useful? Like, were there certain channels that you listen, watch, or was it watching pro matches? Like, what did you do that you found to be, significant on your journey?
I'll tell you what I didn't do. I didn't start with fundamentals.
Okay.
I think I hear that so often where it's like, what's the one thing I got to focus on as a very beginner player? And everyone says fundamentals, right? That's not what I did. I focused on, for some reason, I was really fixated on systems and aiming. And in terms of like YouTube pool, I've probably learned the most from Tor Lowry, Niels Fine, Charivaris out there, Little Chris. I've learned something from everyone. I don't think there's been a pool channel where I've consumed any content and haven't walked away with something to either try or to think about. Not that I can speak for you, but if I had to guess, that's the main difference between learning in the 21st century versus learning 30 years ago.
It's a big one. It's a big one. And, of course, it's interesting. I think about a pyramid of skill where there's a lot of recreational players, a smaller number, but still a large number of low-level amateurs. Then, and when it comes to like serious amateurs and tournament players and then professional players, that as you move up in skill, it gets smaller and smaller. It's a pyramid. And so because of that, when people are making content for, YouTube, if they're looking for views and stuff like that, a lot of content is aimed at entry-level players because you can get millions of views or hundreds of thousands of views instead of dozens of views. And so I think that the first thing that happened with YouTube was there was a lot of channels aimed at beginners, how to aim, how to stand, how to make shots, how to make banks. And then over the years, there's been pioneers that have been delving into the more advanced play. And I think Tor Lowry was first and in many ways best at certain patterns and certain ideas. I really like his content. And then, like you said, Niels Fan has always been my spirit animal as far as like, if, I really like the type of content he does in a lot of ways. And so, but but the reason I like it is because it's very advanced and it speaks to techniques and things that separate intermediates and from advanced. So for Sean,
I don't think I've ever seen a video that Niels did where he described and executed a drill of some kind where there wasn't multiple levels of difficulty for any kind of player.
No, that's fair, but like he's not doing a lot of. I mean, and to be fair, I have seen him do some stuff about like how to stand or how to deliver your cue or how to build a stroke. But I think that I just know that there's certain things that I feel like are missing from a lot of strong players' games, and Niels is hitting a lot of the stuff that I haven't heard from anybody else. That's all I'm saying. So
yeah,
okay.
No, 100%.
That being said, there's a lot of content, and shout out to little Chris. I like he's been doing a lot of cool stuff. And anyway, so YouTube content is certainly available. But my question: how do you navigate? Now we've got a challenge, which is there's so much information that you can't watch it all, and not all of it's the highest quality. So how do you, at some point, like if you have a library that has an infinite number of books, it has all the information. I mean, that's basically with today's internet, that's what we live with. We live with everything we could possibly think of is on the internet, but you'll never be able to read it all. So how do you know where to look and where to find stuff? Like, how did you sort through the endless amounts of information?
Yeah, and it's like if you ever go to a restaurant and their menu is like 150 deep, you're like, where do I freaking start?
Yeah,
it's just like that. Yeah, information paralysis. It's real. When it comes to pool, though, I think most people know where they want to focus in learning if they're trying to learn. Unfortunately, I also believe that focus most of the time is wrong. And so often you hear beginners saying, "Oh, I saw this video on how to aim," and it's not that aiming is bad, and it's not that fundamentals is good, and it's not that it's none of that. It's more about when you are a beginner, you tend to focus on the things that make you excited about the game. And that's making balls. So maybe that's where I see that sort of trend. But when it comes to improving even more in a vast world of almost infinite knowledge, I almost don't know where to take that. Just because in my experience, like I'm such a deep diver that I was okay with watching absolutely everything.
So I was going to ask you that. Like, let me ask you this. Like when you were in your gobbling up content phase, how much a week, how many minutes or hours a week do you think you'd watch YouTube content about pool training?
If I had free time and I wasn't already playing, or let's say I'm in COVID, right? And there's no way in lockdowns, there was no way for me to go. I don't have a table at home. It was just you watch pool, like pro competition, or old videos or something, or you're watching something to learn, or you're reading something to learn. And it was any free time that I had and I wasn't dealing with family stuff or work stuff, that's what I was doing. So it's almost like countless hours. I was really that guy.
Do you think that if you had a table at home Like, suppose somebody had a table at home and a TV with YouTube on it. What would you recommend as a good balance between watching and playing?
Oof. Off the top of my head, that's hard to answer. At the beginning, I would probably say learn as much as you can to a certain point, right? Like, have you ever seen Mark Rollader's? I think his name is Mark Rollader. Maybe I'm wrong, but he does like a fundamentals masterclass, right? And it's something like 5 or 6 hours of him just talking about just the fundamentals of how to hit a cue ball, how to stand, grip, what happens to a ball when you hit it a certain way, and nothing else. It's very, very simple, but he does the deep dive on it. So I would let's say I watch 5 or 6 hours, and then I finally get to a table, and that's all I did. I would just focus on just the things that I watched. So it's very targeted. I'm not sure if anyone else works that way, but the way that I approached it was very much, and I think this was I'm happy with the way that I did it. I think I developed a decent stroke quickly because of this. I would just deep dive on strokes, different types of strokes, stroke timing, the fundamentals, and then I would just stroke with no table. Like I had a couple of months where there was no pool table around, and I would just get my cue out, and on the dining table, I would just try to stroke in a straight line. And I would do that over and over. And maybe that sounds boring and monotonous. It is boring and monotonous, but I knew that was the only way for me to improve without a table. So that's what I did. If you actually have a table, I don't really know if it's that different. I don't know if it's, here's the Mighty X Drill, go try it. And then for the next X amount of days, you're playing the Mighty X Drill. Like, maybe that's it. I do have a philosophy on training and on practice, and it sort of gets into that a little bit, but I'm not really sure how to answer the ratio of
tell me about your philosophy.
Absorption.
I think everyone wants to hear your philosophy on training. Go ahead.
Well, my philosophy on training is very simple, right? Find your weaknesses and then attack your weaknesses the first moment you find a table. It's kind of that simple. Yes, there's more depth to it on like exactly what you're working on, exactly how you're training. I have a workout. Like I have a 2.5 hour workout. If I have time and I have access to a table, there's a workout that I do, and I alternate days from when I do it to when I'm more sort of ball running. But it changes. This workout changes based off of what I feel is my weakness. And so I find a weakness, I target that weakness, I find the right drills, the right exercises, and the right way to not forget what I'm doing at the table. And I try to approach that in a healthy way, where it's not just the only thing I do is try to stroke straight, but where I try to revolve my learnings around certain types of strokes or certain types of patterns or certain types of skills at the table. I found the most growth in targeting skills than I have if I was just to try to learn as much as I can about the game and then, play the ghost and try to just incorporate everything that I'm trying to remember. But guess what? Your brain doesn't work that way, right? Your brain can't just absorb all this information and then access it all at once, right? We can talk about flow, but that's a very different conversation. But when it comes to training, when it comes to practice, having a very deliberate practice, having purposeful practice, there's no better way to get more advanced at any single skill, whether or not it's related to pool, than to target a weakness, find something that helps that weakness, and then focus on it when you train.
Yeah. And I want to speak to that really quickly because there's different people work differently in terms of like styles. And so I have tried being extremely formal and organized about creating specific workouts with certain numbers of times I was going to, work on this for X hours and work on that for X hours and try to hit this shot this many times and track my priors. That's not who I am. But what I would say is to people that don't work that way, that doesn't mean you can't do the same thing in your own way. So for example, what I found works for me is, I have a cue in my head of certain things that I know that I want to see growth in. And so I make a point. It's So it's almost like if you go to the gym, it's like I don't necessarily have an exact, I'm going to do this much at this, reps of this, and then I'm going to go to that. I'm not that formal. But what I also know that I want to be sore when I go home, and I want all my muscles to work out. And I know that today's leg day, tomorrow's not leg day. You know what I mean? Like, so like I'm not an Olympic gymnast or anything, but
Right.
But the point is, when I play pool, it's no different. It's like I have an idea of things where I want to see growth, and so I have a simple rhythm, which is I do think that you want to work on your weaknesses, but I also think you want to work on your strengths and running balls and putting it all together in a rhythmic, flowing, effective way. So for me, it's like I do about half and half. I do like half grind, hard work, and then half play, run balls. And so
that's literally what I was just about to say. That's what my schedule is. I say schedule, but it's like half of the days I work hard, and half of the days I try to ball run.
And so the length of time that I grind on stuff that's hard is not that long. It's, for me, it's usually somewhere between like 20 to 30 minutes. Because listen, for people that are like, that's not long, you set up being frozen on top of a ball, shooting from frozen on top of a ball for half an hour, and tell me how long it took. Because it's goddamn miserable. Trust me, over a ball day is not my favorite thing.
Maybe I should clarify. When I say I have a 2-hour workout, it's not all shooting the same shot.
No.
For 2 hours. It's 15-minute intervals of working on specific weaknesses.
Understood. My whole point is for people that I'm just letting people know that like I've got a certain handful of stuff I like to work on. I've got like a queue of different drills I feel like are being valuable and certain skills that I'm kind of working on. So then when I go to the table, I'll put in like 20, 30 minutes of hard focused work on something I feel like working on. And then I'll try to run some balls. And then I usually keep my practice sessions to an hour because I've got a table at home. And so I could do an hour. And then I take a break, and then I come back and do another hour. And I could do an hour and an hour and an hour and keep focused. So my point is, that's my rhythm. And everybody's got to find what works for them. And so obviously you don't have a table at home, which means you might have to do bigger bursts to get your hours in. But the point is that and I don't neglect certain skills and back burner stuff because I just want it too much. So I don't really have to worry about like telling myself to do it. So, okay. I just wanted to reassure anybody that's listening that's like, man, I don't have a course that I work through. But that speaks to training. And then what I realized, what else is cool about YouTube is that it helps you learn where the gaps are, because when you watch top players play, so that's another thing we didn't really talk about. As I see what are the things that are available today that weren't available a long time ago. So training content on YouTube is one. That's what we've been talking about. But then watching professional matches. We were answering the question, how do you sort through infinite information and try to figure out what to work on? Well, as you watch top players perform, and then you start thinking about where they're succeeding, where you're failing, it could be a really good guide as to where you're leaking the most. And so that can kind of help you answer the question of where you might want to steer. Does that make sense?
I think that, yes, 100%. I think that's, you hit that on the nail on the head there. I think it's, for example, right? And I don't think it has to be professional, whether it's a tournament or some kind of heads up match, but watching pro play on whatever platform, while part of that is entertainment and part of that is learning, I don't always think that it's the best for learning, because you are not, I don't care who you are, if you're an amateur, you are not skilled enough to know exactly why everyone's missing or why they've missed position or whatever the issue may be. But if you watch amateurs play, this is something I've said before to anyone else who's ever asked this question, like what should I watch? Watch some amateurs play. Go watch the APA finals and watch like the skill level 4s and 5s. I'm telling you, you'll learn a lot from that, because not only are you able to just ingest the information visually, but especially when there's commentary and there's commentary on fellow amateurs, you can live vicariously through that. You could say, that's something I would miss too. Or you could say, maybe I would do this in this situation. And then the commentator says, well, that's not really the right shot, and here's why, But if you watch pro play, their patterns are always so good. Their execution is so good. You're not going to learn at that same deep level as if you were, watching a fellow amateur, or maybe a friend, if you had a friend on a stream or a friend at the APA Nationals or something, whatever it is, right? If you watch someone vicariously and learn through that experience, I guarantee you it's at least as effective as it would be if you were watching pro play.
Well,
but I do watch a lot of pro play, to be fair.
Yeah. So a couple of thoughts on that. So I have not tried, I'm at a different spot. I can't speak to what different levels of, beginners should do. But for me, when I was a kid, I watched a lot of pro play. And I think there's two tips I have. So one tip I have about it, but one thing is, even if you're not consciously learning stuff like, okay, what did you learn? Write it down, share with me what what concepts and, whatever. It's like, there's something about watching the world's best perform where the pace and the rhythm and the focus that they bring and the timing of their swings and just the speeds that they're using. And, there's just your subconscious, man, monkey see, monkey do. You're feeding your brain images.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll tell you, man, when I do these 3-day boot camps with people, like, I do not do Zoom lessons. It's absolutely painful for me to sit there and scream, through a screen and squint at their screen. And there are, like, I'll just talk about my last student. My last student was very, very, very educated about how pool works when it comes to cue ball patterns, a lot of, kicking systems and a lot of knowledge about the game. But when he played, when he needed power in his game, his accuracy would break down, his pocketing would break down, and it wouldn't go well. So he was good with finesse and soft touch, and he was a smart, educated guy. But when it came to distance and striking and stroking with power and with distance, he would struggle. And so he was he wasn't even frustrated. He had a really good attitude about it. He's just like, he understood that was not a strength. He's like, I outthink people, I can outsave people, I can outmove people, I can outplan people, but I just don't have the power game into shot making that some other people seem to have. So I looked at his game and his stroke timing, it wasn't odd. Like, I watched your stroke, by the way, just beautiful timing. And so,
thank you, man. I appreciate it.
When he shot with power, he would use muscle and quick cueing. And so, of course, his accuracy would break down. And so we spent hours working on his timing right out of the gate. And it was maybe a little painstaking for him at the beginning. And maybe he felt like, oh, is it going to be 3 days of doing stuff that's uncomfortable and I don't know if I can do it? But then what happened is by the second half of the first day, he had his timing so smooth. And then all of a sudden, he was hitting balls crisply and with I didn't say hard, but he was generating power when he needed power with accuracy, with a smooth, crisp confidence, as opposed to a fast, firing, reckless gamble. And so what ended up happening is, and then I showed him what he could do with that. We built it into other, anyway, I don't want to get into what we trained on for 3 days, but the point where it was really, really profound to me was not only is timing something that comes up on literally every single shot you shoot, and not only did it unlock half of the cue ball tools that he needed, because he simply was incapable of having the tip accuracy and swing speeds to generate half the types of moves you need to use to play big table 9 ball. But beyond that, it's even deeper, because it's almost like inside of us, we're being bullied by this voice and saying, no matter how smart you are, no matter how hard you work, you can never play. You just don't have the game that these other guys have, and they're just bigger and stronger than you are, and you're just this little runt that you better know how to play safe, and you better learn everything you can from Thor Lowry, because you'll never be a real player, because you're just this bunter and you just don't have the talent, and you're just not a real pool player. And it's like, if he ever had doubts and fears because for some reason he just couldn't strike and pocket and stroke like these other players did, by developing his timing, all of a sudden he got to a spot where he was doing everything anybody could do on the pool table. And it was meaningful, not just in his pool play, but just in terms of the accomplishment and how he felt about, his ability to perform. And anyway, so why did I go into all that? Because I can't teach that on a Zoom call. It just doesn't work. It's like, it was too hard. It's like I just needed to be side by side with him for hours to get that to work. But all going back though to watching pro players is the closest thing you could do to like side by side instruction. And so even if this whole rant rolled up under the idea that watching pool players might be beneficial, even if you don't cognitively recognize and learn cognitively. That's all I was.
You know what's so funny about that story is, well, I'd say two things. One is when you're there in person, I love how this guy struggles for, I don't know how long this guy was playing, right? To develop all of that knowledge, but not develop the right timing in his stroke. And then it takes you, a few hours of working with him, and suddenly he's got twice the amount of tools on the table. That's amazing. And that's certainly not something you could do through Zoom. The second thing about that is, ironically, like, the instruction that I've been having recently is over Zoom. And that is, well, I think what's ironic about it.
I feel like I just put my foot in my mouth.
No, not at all. It's the opposite, because what is taking this guy so long to learn is taking me hours and hours of constant nagging practice to learn. And what's ironic is that while your guys' stroke issues were his big game, my stroke issues are my small game. So I just thought it was really funny. Like, I can't move the cue ball 3 inches, but I can move it 3 table lengths, no problem. Right? I mean, you see my stroke. I have a big stroke, but if I had to play, when I play straight pool, it's rough, man. It's super rough. Like,
I got you covered. So I saw the video. I got you covered. For now, just in case, I've got some one-on-one stuff we can talk about another time, but I'll tell you, the no rail drill, so there's like different.
I do that every day. Yeah.
Good. Okay.
It's
good.
Rough. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So
that's one that my online coach right now and I.
So let me give you the ninja level. You ready for this? Do the no rail drill, without any spin, no backspin, no stop shots, no draw shots. So in other words, the only thing you could do is roll the balls in. And so that means you have to get the perfect spot on each ball to roll. So this is, and I don't do the minefield with this.
Trying to give you a heart attack, Demi, just by thinking about that. That's what everything I do was either a soft stun or a drag shot.
So here's what you do is you put all 15 balls out randomly, not like the minefield, just 15 balls spread so they're all separated from each other and not close to a rail. And then you take ball in hand and you just start light rolling the balls in. And what you're going to find is there's only like 2 or 3 inches targets that you can land on the next ball to where you can roll it in, okay? But if you start doing that, those soft rolls are so accurate to control that you will start hitting those 3-inch targets. And I have run, it's hard to run all 15 balls. Maybe you need to get a little lucky. I have run all 15 balls like that a number of times, but generally if you could get double digits or something, it's a heck of a run to run 10 out of 15 like that. But here's what you're going to find. The first few times you try it, you might run 1 or 2 balls like that. And then as you do it, you'll start running more. And what you're going to find is when I watch people do the no rail drill, invariably, people that try to draw their ball fail at the no rail drill because it's simply not an accurate enough cue ball maneuver. It's not. So if somebody's trying to draw their ball 12 inches exactly, and then they fail to do so, you could sit there and say, oh, their cue ball's not very good. Or you could say they're using a cue ball maneuver that's not as accurate. And what I would say is, If you learn to take draw off the table and just see how far you can get with just rolls. And then if you do that, then go ahead and add stops and stuns in there. And if you can use rolls and stops and stuns, so start with the rolls and then build in the stops and stuns and just flat out forbid yourself from using draw. You'll start running through the no rail drill.
It's so funny how you're basically saying, if you can learn to roll, do the hard thing first, right? Do the hard thing first. And I think this is going to be a reoccurring theme about this sort of how do I train in the 21st century? At least for me, doing the hard things first is always going to be the answer of the best way to progress. So you're saying roll the ball, then soft stuns, and then draws.
Yeah, and so
it's so funny when I do that grid drill, like I call it brainwash.
Yeah,
I call it brainwash. When I do that, when I'm rolling balls in, that's only 20% of the time, maybe. Most of it is stuns and soft draws and stuff like that. So I have something I'm definitely going back to the table.
Just disclosure though, I said not the brainwash. But do it with the ball scrambled randomly. Because when they're arranged on that grid format, they don't all pass each other the same way, and you might need more stun shots to get further. But yeah, basically, people that draw their ball, I'll tell you this: Or you could try it with all your tools, and just the next time you get on a line and miss, ask yourself, what cue ball maneuver did I use the shot before? And it's amazing how much of the time it's like, oh, I tried to draw something and then I got on a line and missed. It's amazing the percentage of the misses that follow a draw shot attempt. It's just, and then I'll show you, I'll do the ghost review that you asked me to do, and I'll show you.
The session against the ghost, the video you're talking about that you watch, there's like 3 or 4 balls that I got shape on that I missed, like bad shape because I tried to draw that ball.
And so yeah. So anyway, okay, but I got to go back to we're talking about the value of watching pro players. And so it's basically just visualization. It goes a long way. But then the other tip I have for people is active watching, not passive. So when you watch a pro pool match, if it's live, it's live. But if it's not live, when somebody has a shot and before they start their run, pause the video, look at the layout, try to picture what you would do and how you would try to run those balls. And then you go ahead and play it and listen to the commentary and see what the players do. And you will learn so much more if you try to think about it first before you watch what they do. Because if you
watch
a
great exercise, I love that.
So much of the time you'll watch what they do and you'll just be like, yeah, that's what I would have done. It's like, yeah, no. And then the other thing that you could do is, if you're really passionate, is if they do something that is different than what you would do that surprises you or that you find challenging, and you're like, well, I want to be able to do that, make a note, make it 2 or 3 notes during that match of things that they did that you either didn't know how to do or wouldn't have thought of or would have found uncomfortable, and then go work on that at the table. So like my whole approach to training, in addition to what you're saying, is work on weaknesses. One of my favorite things to do is take something that's uncomfortable, find a version of it that's comfortable, and then little by little edge into the area where I'm uncomfortable. For example, table length draw shots, I'm uncomfortable. Okay, well, table length stop shots, I'm very comfortable. So maybe I start with stop shots and I just work on shooting those shots comfortably with a nice calm speed and good cueing. And then I start focusing on backing it up a foot where it's just a little bit uncomfortable. And I work on doing it comfortably. Or if there's a certain shot like over a ball, okay, well, maybe I start where I'm shooting the shot level with no ball in the way. And then I put a ball where it's a foot behind the cue ball. So it's, I'm using a long bridge and I'm only a little elevated. Or like if I'm shooting off a rail, maybe I have a ball off the rail, then I'm half a ball off the rail. Then little by little, I freeze the cue ball. So it's like little by little, I make it more uncomfortable. And my goal is to just shoot them the same way I shot them when I was comfortable. Shoot them with the same relaxed, because a lot of times when you're comfortable, you shoot relaxed. And when you're not comfortable, you tense up and your stroke is tight and your form is not the best. So basically, I like to just find the part where my body starts getting tight, go to where I'm still comfortable and I'm loose and relaxed and confident, and then just start edging it to where I normally tighten up and work on that and massage that and just try to continue to shoot comfortably and confidently as I edge out of my comfort zone. And you could do that with spin, with draw, with distance, with cut angles, with awkward bridging, with elevation, just anything in general. I just like to get to the edge of my comfort zone and massage it so that little by little I get calm and comfortable with situations that would have previously tightened me up. So anyway,
so you're getting into two things there, and one I think is really really funny about that is that I actually have a sort of rule of thumb when it comes to training, and that is I start at 80%. And what I mean is I kind of like what you were saying. I start working on my weaknesses with the 80% shot, and I very very quickly move on to the 70% version of that, and then the 60% version of that, and the 50% version of that. Like, so kind of like what you're saying, if you're practicing rail shots, start with the ball out, and then you move that ball slowly towards the rail. I think that's great. I think what trips up a lot of players is when they practice, and this gets into the second part of what I was going to say. When they practice, a lot of times they're practicing they're practicing out of fear. They're not practicing out of gain. They're practicing out of fear of losing what they've already acquired versus gaining something they don't have. Does that make sense?
I'm thinking about that.
Yeah. Okay. So let me expand a little bit. So if you're practicing out of fear, then that means that you are trying to make that 80% shot into a 100% shot, or that 90% shot into a 95% shot. You're trying to gain that tiny edge in your window of comfortability that is very high.
Okay.
What I would say is dangerous about training about that, which is training out of fear, is then you lose the growth factor that is inherent in being human, which is our ability to adapt and to change based off of the adversity that we're faced with. So, and this is where things like flow state come into play, right? There's that challenge to skills ratio where if the higher the challenges, the higher the skill must be to overcome that challenge. But if your skills exceed your challenge to a point where it then becomes apathy, then your skills will never increase. Same is if your skills if the challenge is so far above where your skill level is, then it's not apathy, it becomes anxiety. And suddenly you shut down and you can't perform. So there's that sweet spot of finding that sort of just away from your reach, right? Just away from your 100% skill level. That 104, the 4% skill level, that 4% shows up in flow state research all the time. Find something that is just over your skill level.
It speaks to me because I think about, you know, have the courage to change what you can and the serenity to accept what you can't change. It's like knowing how far you could drive yourself while still accepting. It's like, you know, that's the hardest, you know, one of the hard things is knowing what the limits are. And is this an area where I'm still on the front end of the learning curve and I can make rapid progress and I can double my performance at this? Or have I already fairly good at this and I just have to edge it up a little bit and accept that it's never going to be superhuman, you know? And so the way that the YouTube videos and watching pro pool players helps is that it gives you some standards because, you know, if you didn't know, like, for example, straight in shots, like if you set up the cue ball on the spot and shoot a diagonal shot across the table on a 9-foot pool table, you might think, oh, I'm a pool player. I should be able to make this, like, if not 100 out of 100, I should be at least 90%, or, you know, I should be 95% as a straight in shot. And what's wrong if I can't do that? But the funny part is like, I've played pool for a lot of years and I'm a fairly good player. And it's like, I don't make 95%. Like, I might have streaks where I make 10 in a row, but then there's days when I there's days I get down to that shot and it just cuts into the side rail a couple times. And I'm like, oh, that's not right. What I was looking to do. So, like, but you wouldn't necessarily know that because, like, man, it's a straight shot. You might think that you're supposed to be able. So the point is, by watching other players and watching how other players do, it gives you some basis of comparison to know, is this an area where I've got a lot of meat left on the bone to kind of go after, or is this an area where it's just maybe that's kind of the limits of the shot and I can't expect a lot more from myself, you know?
Yeah, and that's where when I said 80%, that's my threshold of what to work on, right? If I feel 80% confident that I will make a shot, I don't necessarily target that when I train. The shots where I target are the things where I feel like there's a really good chance that I sell out right here, or that I don't get back to the table for a very long time. That
makes sense. And what I'd say is that I boil it down to where I have 3 levels. I have the 95%, the 75%, and the 50%, because, you know, like table length banks from distance are never going to be more than 50-50 for me. So I cannot practice those to 80%. And it might be, so you kind of have to know what the limits are of each type of shot. And you have to try to, my whole plan of attack is soak up the rapid progress you can make on the front of the learning curve on every type of shot before you worry about grinding endlessly to try to close the gap of 1 or 2 more % on any shot.
Yeah, I love that. Soak up that curve, because it's really about kind of like we were saying again about shooting something off the rail and then moving the ball closer to the rail. That progressive training is inherent in refining skills. So, and this goes with every skill. I'm kind of like a skill monkey, a skill nerd. Like, I love, like, acquiring new skills is like almost its own hobby for me. And obviously that's true with pool, but I think a smart way to train that in pool is to, you touched on this a little bit before, where you're talking about training, let's say, a shot, but find the easy version of that shot first, right?
Yeah.
So why fire at the 30-degree cut shot down the rail from 7 feet away when that shot's like 30% for you or 20% for you. Like, work on that same angle, that same shot, the same cue ball, the same stroke, the same speed, with the same cue tip placement, but work at it from 3 feet away.
Well, and you know what's funny about that is 100%. And there's something else about that I actually wanted to share, which is I have this idea, and I used to think about this more. I haven't thought about this for a while. When you miss, if you wanted to really simplify it, you could almost say it's either one of two things. Either you didn't aim correctly, like you didn't visualize where you needed the cue ball correctly, or you failed to get the cue ball where you visualized it. And so when I was learning pool, I would really work on one or the other, because I would look at it like this. If I'm practicing a difficult shot to aim from a fairly close distance, well, then if I miss, I could probably attribute that to my aim, because I'm very close to it. So if I miss it, it's probably I didn't aim it. On the other hand, if I'm going to work on long distance shots, I might set up shots that I can visualize very easily, but then I work on them from distance, and that helps me work on delivering the cue ball. And that way, if I'm shooting long shots that I can visualize clearly and I'm missing them, I'm like, okay, well, now that has to do with I'm obviously failing to get the cue ball where I'm looking.
You've mentioned this to me before, yeah. Where when you focus on pocketing a ball, let's say, if you focus on where the cue ball is, sometimes it makes the pocketing easier.
Well, I'm saying a little different. Basically, I will work on difficult to aim shots from close distance, and then I will work on distance shots on shots that are easier to aim, because that way I feel like, that way I know, if I'm working on long shots and I'm missing them, then I know that it's because of my delivery. And if I'm working on close shots and I'm missing, well, then it's because of my aim. But if I'm working on long shots that are difficult to aim, well, then if I miss, I have no idea why I'm missing. It's like I could be aiming wrong. I could be failing to hit where I'm aiming or pull. And so I kind of like...
the window for failure is much larger. Yeah.
So I like to work on one at a time. And then, of course, I'll work on it both together. But to your point, I'll work on the easy version where I'm close to it so that I know that I'm aiming it correctly. And then when I know I'm aiming it correctly and I'm having success from close, then I will add the element about adding the distance in and having to deliver the cue ball there. Yeah, but that's it. I was just going with what you said.
Yeah, no, so I mean, this is kind of a long conversation to say more or less the same thing twice, which is find the things that are difficult and then find a comprehensive, easy, repeatable way to do the difficult shot, and then work towards the difficulty while you're at the edge of your skill level, right? Not like, oh, I can shoot this 95% of the time and then always shoot the easy version of that. And then just, when time comes, be like, oh, this is like the easy version, but it's longer, and then try to fire it in and wonder why you keep missing. You have to build in the uncomfortability of the shot into your training, because again, it's part of being human. We adapt at the edge of our capabilities. We do not adapt when we're comfortable, right? So if you don't plan for the uncomfortability when you're training, when you're practicing, then it's much harder to improve quickly.
I couldn't agree more. And the only thing I disagree with is, why would we say it only twice when we could say it 12 times? But okay. Yes. So then getting back, I'll tell you one other thing that I think is cool. So we've talked about two big advantages of growing up with pool today. So one is YouTube content and instructional content. And the second is access to high-level professional play, which absolutely wasn't around. But then there's one other thing that was on my mind, which was like, I guess you could kind of include this podcast in there, which is social media has allowed people access to the professionals, not just on a viewing their performance level, but on a kind of mentorship, like living through them and hearing how they live their lives. So for example, instead of just watching pro matches, you can actually see how these players train, how they think, how they talk. So people listening to me and you, like, they could hear how we train and how we think. And then they can watch Chris Reinhold and see him kind of journaling about his matches and how they went and what he's going to work on and how he's processing his losses and what he's taken away from his matches and how long he's training. So people, it kind of gives them like a road that they can follow beyond just here's how to play, but here's actually here's the path that leads to that type of performance. And so I don't know, I think that's a different thing than either instruction or performance match play. I think that, like, just the access to that lifestyle, I guess, the competitor lifestyle, making that lifestyle clearly known. What do you think?
Yeah, the insight to what a player really goes through. Like when people say, you know, they look at Shane and go, Shane's a monster. He's always been a monster, or Josh is a monster, right? But then you look at their Facebook posts and it's like, oh, these guys either are really working hard at it or they're treating it. I mean, maybe not Shane. It's hard to say because he's still one of these prime figures in pool 15, 20 years later. But, you know, if you look at guys like Federer, right? This guy is training really hard, but then he like live streams it and he's letting everyone know, here's how you get better. Here's why I'm failing in XYZ areas, or here's what I struggle with. Or, you know, like guys like Tyler Steyer, it's a sport to them, you know? And when I say it's a sport to them, there's a whole discussion of whether or not pool's a sport. We don't have to get into it.
It's a flimsy game.
That's another conversation. So, but I'm talking about,
you know that quote, Okay.
Oh, do I?
Okay. So Earl was being interviewed one time. You could find, if you look up Earl Strickland interview compilation, I'm sure you'll find it, where they're talking about like, what do you think, is pool a sport? He'd be like, with these break rules, pool should be a sport. It's this with these break rules, it's a flimsy game.
Oh my God.
Anyway, the reason I thought about that is because I was playing with Jesse Eggle the other day, and somehow I forget something came up, and he says it's a flimsy game, and I forgot all about it. I hadn't heard it for like 10 years, and
that's so funny. Well, actually, I would say if we're talking about the differences between playing now versus playing, I don't know what back in the day is for you.
I had to walk around and look at the numbers on the balls because there was no colors.
Oh man, that's great. Yeah, especially now in like modern day pool, it's very easy to tell that these top professionals do treat it like a sport, right? They treat their bodies like they're athletes. At least most of them do. Okay, they pay attention to their mental health, to their physical health, to how they approach the game, how they train about the game. It's not like 30, 40 years ago where, you're either a monster and you're playing in pool rooms, gambling your life away, or you're losing, or you're improving. I think it's a much more structured way to look at improving the game that is based in sports psychological mindset.
Yeah, they show you the whole package of like, here's what it takes to be a professional. And that could just be on Facebook or whatever posts. It could be on these players that, like Federer, who are willing to live stream their practice and talk about it and post about it, or it just could be through podcasts like this, whatever. So between the YouTube content, the professional pool content that's available, and just the transparency of the journey, those seem to be like the biggest technology advancements in terms of what advantages the players today have. And I think better quality information. I'd say that kind of is redundant, but like the information out there, there's not as many superstitious myths about it, So now I have a different question for you. I know you soaked all that up and taken advantage of those different avenues, and I hope that our listeners do it if they'd like to, or if they're trying to figure out. Hopefully this helps people know what tools are out there. But what percentage of people, and I suppose this is all relative to where you play, right? But so talk to me about on the recreational side versus on the league side that's more intermediate leagues. I don't know, what are the circles you play pool in? How many people are using these tools? Have you seen this? Has this permeated all the way down to the APA levels, like the APA, threes? Or is it what level do you see people starting to take advantage of these tools?
Oh man, that's hard for me to answer because I don't have anything to compare it to. Right. I don't know what league was like. I don't know. Was league around when you were learning to play? If the answer is
nobody did it because we wouldn't play for fun. Because when I grew up, people would say things like, "Does a plumber go home and practice fixing his toilet for fun?" We kind of sneered at playing for fun, man. Nobody would put their cue together for less than 100. But anyway,
so that sort of brings me to this strange dichotomy that we find ourselves in as amateur players. At least me as an amateur player. when I walk into a pool room and it's league night, the players that I see do have access and they do find, ways to improve their game by, watching YouTube videos, etc., being involved in social media, but they don't apply what they learn from that really to league because they see league as a very social experience. For the most part, it's a social experience. You have those 1 out of 20 players in league that really tries to take it more seriously, and in that case, they're using league as a means of competition. That's why I was in league for that season. I went to my local league and I was like, hey, I'm looking to find some competition. And they were like, cool, here are the dates for our league. What days are you free? And I was able to make myself available once a week and I could go out and do it. Now, for me, it turned out that was not the right choice at the time. But I did it for a season and that's a whole nother story. But for others, it might be the perfect place for you to go and test yourself, right? So to have a constant set of parameters where you could test yourself, gauge where your skill level is at, what your comfortability is in competition, whether or not it's league or playing a heads-up match against the same guy every week, or a same set of guys, or I don't know if it's a ring game or playing a weekly tournament, but there are a lot of opportunities, at least now, where you have different levels of play that you can go and seek, and the information to get those things is easily at the fingertips, right? Because we live in the 21st century. I don't know what it was like 30 years ago, but we have that information easy to get to now, and we have the locations, at least as far as I'm aware. Most people have access to a league where they live, or access to competition, reoccurring competition where they live, as a means of testing themselves if they're serious about their improvement.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, so something that kind of occurred to me, and I'll tie it back to what you just said, is when I was asking how many people take advantage of this, I guess there's always a bell curve. There's always going to be some people that are all in, nuts, get the pool bug, and do everything possible they can think of to get better. And then there's going to be people that are just never going to be that serious about it. They're just going to swap balls around. And then you've got people in the middle. So, but here's what I can say is, even though that bell curve is probably going to be the same as far as who's really going to apply themselves and who's not, if there's more resources available to everybody, then the whole bell curve shifts. And the people that are hungry get better quicker than they would have. The people in the middle that maybe don't go quite as deep as you did, but they're still going to have, because of the abundant resources, they're still going to benefit from today's resources more than they would have and 30 years ago, and all the way down the chain. So even though the bell curve is always going to be the bell curve, the whole range has shifted, and the whole levels of play have gotten better. And then the other thing where that ties in with what you're saying is one big resource that is kind of indirect. We've been talking about things that you could do actively, like watch YouTube content, follow people on social media, hear how they live, and watch pro matches. But the other thing is who you play against impacts your journey substantially. And if you're playing skilled players that are knowledgeable and competent, you're going to get better faster than if you're playing, recreational players that don't take the game seriously. And as the resources have gotten more available and the average levels of play have improved, well, then your opponents have improved too. And so you're going to rise the level of your competition. So even if you don't know it, even if you're not taking advantage of the resources yourself, your opponents are, and they will push you. And so therefore you're benefiting from it indirectly. So when you're talking about like the different places you can play, sparring, heads up, or leagues or tournaments or whatever, all your opponents, the rising ocean lifts all boats.
Yep, that's right. It's really about the competition that you put yourself in, right? Kind of like what you're saying, you signed a waiver for this. Here's what you're in for, right? Well, the waiver you sign depends on which product you buy. And so you have to buy into the product that gives you the most benefit. And for me, at least, my one season in APA was not enough for me to jump in feet first. But I'll tell you what, there's an old timer that I play pretty much every week or every other week, and that guy pushes the crap out of me because that guy can hit a ball, right? Um, and I probably learned just as much or more from that guy than I have from all my other competition combined. And that's just one source. But because it pushes me to my edge, like I have no option but adapt or die. And so that
Yeah.
it really just comes down to, asking yourself what you want, and then looking at your choices objectively and seeing if those are the choices that someone wants to improve and would choose. The only other thing that comes to my mind when it comes to who do you play in regards to comparing modern day pool to, let's call it old school pool, is the culture of pool, right? Pool culture right now, at least in America, is shifting, right? It's shifting more towards, league heavy, professional play heavy. It's a little bit more treated like a sport. Everyone's got a place, right?
Well, just kidding. Yeah.
You're killing me, man.
Wait, ask me again in about 18 months and we'll see how you like it.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is when you compare what pool culture was like,
it wasn't inclusive, and it wasn't what's the word for like within reach? It wasn't really within reach and inclusive. Yeah.
Right. Unfortunately, pool culture to a pedestrian outside of pool, right, looks into pool and they still sort of have a general idea of what pool culture looks like, but that's far less dramatic than the true shift between what pool was like 30 years ago and what it's like today, right? I'm specifically talking about like the gambling culture and like the shape of what a pool room looks like physically. Like you enter into a pool room now and half of them are just nice spots to hang out with your friends, but that wasn't the case.
Yeah, it's shocking how much support and encouragement there is too. When I was 15, maybe I was 14 or 15, and $20 for me back in the 90s when I was 14 and 15, $20 was, real money. And I remember there was one player in my town that was like, he played a little bit on the professional tour, and he was never around the pool hall because he just practiced and played professionally. And I barely ever got a chance to meet him or play with him. And anyway, one day he was in the pool hall. I think I might have been 15, and I played him races to 7 for $20 because he wouldn't play. I mean, I'm 15 and he's a professional. He wouldn't and he wouldn't hit balls with it. Like, he insisted we play for money, and he was like, he would take my $20 a set begrudgingly, like I'm getting a discount. I'm getting the junior discount, and he's beating the piss out of me, and he's like kind of disgustedly like, there's nothing better to do, so I'm going to empty this kid's pocket. And I played him, and he beat me 4 sets in a row, and so I had $20 left. I only had $100, which that was all, that was all my money. And I asked him, the last set I asked him if he would give me the call 8. And he looked at me and he says, "We're playing for $20. I'm not giving you a spot." And he like got angry about it.
Oh.
And I was just like, I remember that, it's just like, man, that was tough. And another time. Anyway, I could tell you, yeah, it was pretty tough, man. There wasn't a lot of let's help somebody out. Yeah. Anyway, we don't need to go down that road, but you're right. It's a much more supportive and encouraging, inclusive atmosphere and culture.
Yeah, I think that was my instinct to when you started talking about like just the difference with how we test ourselves. It's really about being able to go and play anywhere and have a friendly game. Yeah.
Right on, Nate. Well, I think that was what was on my mind. So I'm sure we'll have other thoughts we could probably add in the future, our next pod. But
I mean, I have all the thoughts. So you name it, I'll talk about it.
Thanks you. So to all the listeners that hung in with us till the end, thanks so much. You can ask us if you have questions that you'd like us to address. Again, I'm at info@mnpoolbootcamp.com. You can shoot me an email or reach out to Sensei Nate Plays Pool. And if you watch his videos and if you have questions, you can definitely ask him. And he's if he likes you,
I'm an open book. Go ahead, guys.
That's right. Cool. Well, thanks, Nate. Look forward to the next one.
Thank you, Demi.
All right. Wishing everyone a good time on the table. Take care.